Onion Cycles podcast is about thought provoking, emotion evoking, action driven, step by step guidance to explore the unique, glorious, and wonderful ocean of your being. Because healing is a multi layered process of getting to know oneself. Become the self empowered empiric researcher by discovering the unique layers of your existence. With your host, Nadine Alma, welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. Welcome to the Onion Cycles podcast. Hello, my beloved fellow healing onions, and welcome to another episode of the Onion Cycles podcast. A warm welcome to everyone tuning in for the first time. Welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. Today, I bring to you story 33, episode 34. We're all about redefining happiness. And before we start, a little disclaimer: if you hear some rustling in the back, I am currently stationed at Skjeka which I think translated means Skjeka waterfall. I am stationed here somewhere in Norway in this gorgeous, beautiful, mystical, magical country, and there was basically no other option than record this here. I hope it brings magic to this episode. And without further ado, let's start with the topic. I wanted to split this redefining happiness into three different sections. The one is the if then trap. And we discussed this, I think, in our episode called Gratitude. So if you want to check that out after this one, feel free to do so. Then I want to dive into what the right questions, quote unquote, are to redefine or get to know your own happiness. And lastly, I want to shout out to at James Moore Wellness, because he actually inspired me to do this episode with his new 4 a day that you need. Now, if then trap. What I mean by that is that a lot of times we fall into the trap of saying that we will acquire happiness once we have something, once we achieve something, once we are somewhere, once we get something. And I believe a lot of that comes from social conditioning, because we are shown from quite an early age that happiness comes from the outside, from the external, and it is tied to things, it is tied to events, it is tied to people, it is tied to special experiences, if you will. A huge part of that comes from advertisement, I think, because all advertisement is saying if you buy this, then you'll be happy, then you'll be fulfilled, but only if you purchase this. So we confuse success with happiness a lot of times. And I think that is because advertisement says that we'll only be fulfilled, we'll only be happy, we'll only be healthy, we'll only be successful when we purchase the product. So the social conditioning of the observation from a very young age that success means owning everything, having access to everything, being able to buy everything, I think that sort of makes us good consumers. So if I reach and have and achieve and win, or if I'm something, then I'll be happy. But we know that we've come so far in this journey right now, like literally 34 episodes in. We know that we can't tie our happiness to the external. And we also discussed already the Stoic approach on happiness, which is more like seeing it as a virtue to be of service, a virtue to be content, and a virtue to not be a slave to your own emotions. It doesn't mean not feeling anything. I think, quite frankly, that that is a lot of times misunderstood about the Stoics. They're not feeling or suppressing something. They just look at it from a objective point of view, which is a high skill to have if you're in the middle of a traumatic experience, if you're in the middle of something happening that turns your life upside down, but you're able to sit down and then go inward and reflect on it from the bird's eye view, and then come to the conclusion that after all, it might be that something good comes out of that, or there doesn't even have to be something good coming out of it. It's just observing your emotions and then making peace with them. It's like letting the emotions flow through you, feel them, and then you transmute them, kind of like alchemy. And then out of that comes a more content approach on life. So if we don't tie our fulfillment, our tranquility, our security, our contentment to external rewards, we sort of have this base within us that makes us unshakable. I always love to say that the only constant in life is change, right? And so, the same way for us humans, also that is applicable for our goals, right? So if you have a goal and then you achieve that and then you don't feel anything about that, or you feel happy and then instantly the happiness is removed and you go on to the next, you don't even take time to congratulate yourself or to feel proud or to feel joyful about achieving that goal, then that is being in that change in life itself, right? And most of the times, because we tie that fulfillment, we tie that contentment to an external reward, we sort of are constantly on the hunt. So then that exactly is what the if then trap describes. How we can sort of let that behind us is to say that happiness is as dynamic as life is, as we humans are, as our goals are, as our principles, our morals, our innate truth can be, right? So it's a process, it's ever changing, and it is never finished. Therefore, we can't tie it to something. So life is basically happening while we're busy making other plans. As soon as we get comfortable with the constant change that life is, we won't tie our happiness, tranquility, fulfillment, security to something external, because we sort of build that base foundation within ourselves that if then nothing, but always I am, right? If that makes sense. So from there, I want to go to a second part of this podcast episode, which is quote unquote asking the right questions, because I feel like most of us never explicably talk about what our happiness consists of. Like, what does happiness consist for you? What does it look like for you? I was very inspired by an interview I watched with Ed Sheeran, because he said something very interesting. Because most of us, we think, oh, our hobby, if we love it that much, if we could just earn our money by making our life revolve around that hobby and making a living out of it. And then I watched this interview with Ed Sheeran, and he actually said, I've been on the road and doing music for like, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years. And I just was burned out and I didn't even want to grab my guitar and sing anymore. So I needed a new hobby, something I wouldn't do for money, something I would just do for the sake of doing, just for the sake of creating, because I believe he's a creative soul and he just wants to create. But at some point, he had to redefine his happiness and what fulfills him, because when you do something all the time and you're good at it and you get better, there at some point you can't get further. And I believe that doing something for the sake of doing is partially more rewarding than if you do something with the pressure of making it good enough so that it earns you money. I am not making money being an artist. So if an artist is listening out there, I would be so curious to know more about your journey and what you think about this topic. But I feel like there is a lot of value in what Ed Sheeran had to say about having another hobby, and that creating just for the sake of creating freed him in a sense. That was a side track, but what I'm leading up to is asking the right questions in answering yourself, what does happiness look for you? And those questions will be available on the worksheet. Every episode goes with a worksheet, and that worksheet is available for free download on my website www.wonderfinder.org. So in this week's worksheet, I have those questions that supposedly put you on the right track of finding out what happiness looks like for you, or even redefining your own happiness. And the questions that are on there is revolving around if you have a goal, and if not, why you don't have a goal, and if you have a goal, is it really your goal, or did you just take on whatever someone else expected you to achieve in your life? And what does your goal mean to you? Which is a very interesting question, because imagine no one will ever know you reached your goal. Would you still want to reach it? Would you still do it? And is what are you sacrificing because of you think you first have to reach this certain goal, right? What are you sacrificing? What moments, what experiences, even what people maybe are you sacrificing for that goal? And do you think it's worth it? Will it be worth it in the end? And when you last reached a goal, the last time you could remember, did it make you happy? And was it as ecstatic as you've imagined, or was the effect long lasting? Or was it gone the moment you achieved it and you just went on to the next thing? And has your life and your experienced reality changed drastically because of reaching that goal? Or wasn't it that important after all? What emotion are you hoping to achieve because of your goal? Is it a possibility to get this emotion into your life now, even before you reach that goal, even without reaching that goal? Is that a possibility? I love those questions. I answered them myself, and I am surprised on how that turned out. So I basically just journaled about them. And I would highly recommend you, if you are on this path of finding your own happiness, finding out who you are, what you want to be, what you want your life to look like. I feel like those questions put you on the right track, or put you at least on a track of thinking about who you really are and what you really want to do and how you want your life to look like. Now, I said that at the beginning, I got the inspiration for this podcast episode from the Instagram account at James Moore Wellness, because he brought to me my new 4 a day, and I found that so interesting. So what he says is that the only to-do list you will ever need to fulfill is the 4 hormones that define different kinds of happiness and different kinds of fulfillment in your life. The 4 hormones are dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So, dopamine you get from completing a task, eating good food, or getting enough sleep. Oxytocin is when you play with animals or give a compliment, be of service to someone else. Holding hands and cuddling, obviously, is like this hormone that comes out when you are in connection with someone or something outside of you. And then serotonin is being in nature, meditation, getting sun, and being mindful and aware. It's like the internal, going inward and being with oneself and with one's thoughts, or not thinking at all, or just being and existing. And then we have the endorphins, which is something like laughing and exercising and having that high after a good run or a good workout, creating something, being creative, or watching a funny movie, even. And I found that list very inspiring, and I try to have at least all 4 of them done once a day, because the good thing about this list is that it doesn't take up much of your time now, does it? Because basically, dopamine you can get from just eating good food, which should be something you do every day anyway. And then oxytocin, oh, just hug someone for 30 seconds and you have that hormone off the to do list as well. And then just do a walk for 10 minutes or do a meditation for 10 minutes. And then, last on the list, sit down and watch a funny movie. And that's your day complete. The only thing you need to do, the only to do list you need to fulfill. I found that very endearing. I found that very inspiring. And that was why I wanted to do this episode as well. So, famous last words on redefining happiness. I believe happiness changes all the time. Nonetheless, it's very important to think about it and really go into yourself and make like this capture of the moment you're in now. What would happiness look like for you right now, where you're at? And then just accept that happiness is deeply personal. And to most, it's even unknown, like they never even thought about it. Yet we can give this emotion to ourselves every day without achieving anything, without striving for something, without wanting everything. It's like a decision. It's like either I wake up in the morning and it's raining and I am in a bitter mood, and then the rain stops and I feel like, oh, that was so classic for me. The whole day is ruined. I'm gonna go for a walk now and I take this bitterness with me. Or it rains in the morning and I say, oh well, nice. Okay, let's just do a short walk and then I'll just create something for the sake of creating. And then I'm surprised when the rain passes and the sun comes out and I'm all over town and thinking, oh, this is joyful. I thought it was a rainy day and now the sun has come out, and I take that joyfulness with me, that gratitude, and go out into the world and bring that to the world as well. So it's a decision. I'm not saying it's an easy one. I'm not saying that it's not a learning curve. I'm not saying that you don't need to take yourself up for the challenge every single time something like that comes up, and it might be just so much more strenuous than just having a rainy day. It might be a period of depression, it might be a traumatic experience, it might be anxiety or panic attacks. What I'm saying though is that even though it's not easy, even though it's not a linear line, even though it's not a beautiful journey that is a one shoe fit all recipe, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for a relationship to be built. Your relationship with yourself. By getting to know yourself, you will build a relationship to happiness as well. Because by getting to know yourself, you will find out what makes you happy, what fulfills you, what brings you tranquility. And then not be so obsessed with your goals, because goals are important, yes, but purpose comes from existing for the simple reason of existing. It's just we are in this culture where it's all about putting stuff out, creating content, and being productive and hustling, and sort of the virtue of boredom, the virtue of doing nothing and just being, and the virtue and beauty of being yourself just in the moment has somewhat been lost. And I believe that there is a reason for all of these people out there being constantly sick and being constantly mentally fragile and being constantly on the verge of giving up on their lives, is because they don't have time to themselves. They don't even have time to think. So I believe it all starts with thinking and just taking the time, even if it's just 5 minutes before bed or after waking up, taking your journal and thinking about yourself, thinking about what you want to contribute to the world, what you want to contribute to yourself, to your me time, and how you will get that glass of water that is you full so that you can give the overflow to others. And in doing so, I believe that is the most nurturing, nourishing thing, healing thing you could do for yourselves and for the world. And with that said, I hope that this episode was some sort of happiness for you. I hope it was of service to you. I hope it brought you something to take with you, think about, food for thought, if you will, and that in the near future you're able to redefine what happiness means to you and maybe even bring that to someone else's life too. I want to let you know that I am very grateful that you tune in every week and listen to my content. If you have any suggestions, just let me know. And until next time, my beloved fellow healing onions.